Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Dan Stocks from Trafalgar Property Group plc. I'm here this evening to tell you a little bit more about my company, Trafalgar Property Group plc, and in particular the assisted living extra care market, which is what we're now primarily focused on. Before I go any further with the assisted living, I'd like to give you a brief background of the company, and I'll explain why we're now heavily focused on the assisted living sector of the market as opposed to the residential development sector. A little bit of history about us. Trafalgar Property Group plc has been listed on the AIM market since 2013. Until recently, the group focused solely on residential developments, primarily within the Kent region. When I say residential, I mean residential houses and flats, apartments, for sale to everyone that would want to buy one. However, more recently, Trafalgar have purchased Beaufort Homes, which was myself and my colleague Paul, who you may meet later, and we are now known as Trafalgar Retirement Plus. And we are totally focused on the assisted living extra care market, and I'll explain a little bit later what the assisted living and extra care is for those of you that are a little bit uncertain. That's our board and senior management. The people that are involved on a day-to-day running basis is myself, Daniel Stocks. I'm a chartered building surveyor. Christopher Johnson, who is our chief executive, and Paul Treadaway, who is, as I say, he's here with me this afternoon. As previously discussed, Trafalgar Property Group plc currently has two divisions. Trafalgar New Homes, which is the residential developments in South East England, as I say, mainly based around the Kent region. And now Trafalgar Retirement Plus, which is what I'm here mainly to discuss with you today, as this is our primary focus now within the company. So if I can explain a little bit to you about assisted living extra care. There are many names that are banded around within the housing retirement sector, all of which have a slightly different meaning and all of which offer slightly different solutions to the housing the ageing population. Most are based on the rental model, and I'll explain a little bit about why this is falling out of favour later on. So Trafalgar Retirement Plus, as the name suggests, is retirement living with something extra, hence also the name extra care and assisted living. The Trafalgar retirement model, i.e. our model, is fairly straightforward. Simply put, we build developments which contain 1 and 2 bedroom luxury apartments within a traditionally constructed development. A 1 bed is generally about 650 square foot, and a 2 bed is generally about 800 square foot, so a reasonably good size. Each development typically comprises between 40 and 70 self-contained 1 and 2 bedroom apartments. The apartments are purchased by the owners, allowing them to retain the asset of their home, and they get the access to 24-hour care and support. Each and every apartment is built and fitted out with high-end fixtures and fittings, and will contain 1 or 2 good-sized bedrooms, a well-appointed bathroom, a kitchen, and a good-sized lounge and living area. Each apartment is provided with a call care button that the owners can press in the event that they require assistance. It's normally a pull cord or a push button. In each development we have a 24-hour, 365 days a year CQC, which is a Care Quality Commission care manager that will answer the call as and when it's pressed. The apartments are really no different to a high standard or high-end residential apartment, and this creates a modern, clean feel to our developments, moving away from your typical care home type look and feel. Within each and every development there's a communal owner's lounge, a dining room, a hairdresser's or wellness suite, often it's a nail bar, an IT room, and depending on the size of the development, we have other facilities that can be enjoyed by the owners. All of our developments are located within walking distance of local shops, amenities, and they're typically close, or very close in fact, to a bus stop or other forms of public transport. So Trafalgar Retirement Plus. The plus part of Trafalgar Retirement is the provision of domiciliary care or help within your own home. With the purchase of your apartment, you'll receive 1.5 hours domiciliary care each week, and you can increase this amount of domiciliary care as and when you require it. As previously advised, each development comprises an owner's lounge, dining room with access to a restaurant which can provide 3 meals a day. We like to try and create a community within our developments, and that's sort of our ethos really, whereby we strongly believe that social interaction amongst the elderly is paramount to leading a healthy and happy life within later years. And it's not just our belief, it's a proven fact that as people get older, interaction is paramount and good for health and mental health. Therefore, each and every development has an in-house manager who is responsible for arranging social and recreational activities, including all of those which promote health, physical activity, and create a close-knit community within each and every development. In terms of the care offered within each development, this is separate to the facilities I've just discussed. There's a full-time 24/7 fully trained care quality commission nurse, and she's based, as I say, within each development at all times, and in the event that an owner needs assistance or medical assistance, then she will be there as quickly as she can, as she's located on site. Additional medical care can be organised through the nurse as and when it's required. So, demand for this type of retirement property. Demand for these assisted living extra care apartments is growing year on year. And given the statistics of a rapidly growing aging population, the demand will continue to far outstrip the supply. I think it was about a month ago that Jeremy Hunt was on the Jonathan Marr show, and that his statistics were that 1.2 million people will hit the age of 75 and over within the next 10 years. So this is 100,000 a year or more, and the current retirement sector is constructing only 3,000 units a year. So clearly there is currently a massive shortage, which is only going to get bigger as time goes on. The current specialised housing market for the elderly at the moment is small, and it's, as I previously advised, is predominantly based on a rental model. Our model is that of selling the apartment, and I'll explain why that's preferable to many people a little bit later. With rental figures, some of these care homes are in excess of £1,500 per week per person, depending on your needs, and this can increase. I've heard of £3,000 or £4,000 a week, and it's not unsurprising that people are steering away from this type of housing in the latter years and wish to maintain an asset. With the Trafalgar Retirement Plus model, as I've previously said, you buy your apartment, you then have a monthly service charge, and this covers the facilities that are within the development, and a small amount, a basic level of domiciliary care, of which you can increase as and when you require more. The asset then, in later years, can be sold if and when required, and that makes it quite a popular proposition for many purchasers that are downsizing from a larger family home and still want to maintain an asset that they can pass down to children and so on. The majority of our target will typically tend to be selling larger family homes, as they no longer need or can afford to the upkeep of a family home, and typically they'll be purchasing a new apartment within one of our developments outright, and the remainder of their funds will be set aside to cover the service charge and care requirements over their remaining years. It's of great concern to many older people that they will run out of money. That's one of their biggest fears, is running out of money. And these apartments are, it's possible to get equity release as well, so people can take money back out from these if they need a larger pot set aside. The move from a larger family home to an assisted living apartment is also often, sadly, a needs-based move rather than an aspirational-based move. And as a result of that, to a certain degree, these assisted living developments can weather the financial storms slightly better, as people really need to move into our developments as they get older and need that help, either immediately or as and when as they get older. Statistics. I've mentioned a few statistics, but I can just talk through a few more with you, and then hopefully you'll understand the huge demand that there currently is for this product. As a colleague of mine once said, there's a tsunami of elderly people coming over the hill. Not the nicest thing to say, but I think there's a certain amount of truth within that, sadly. There are currently 11.8 million people over the age of 65. By 2030, there will be 20 million people over the age of 60. Over 75-year-olds are set to double in the next 30 years. And 1 in 4 people will be over 65 years of age by 2040. There's various sources which I would point you in the direction of to look at. The Office for National Statistics, Parliament UK, Age UK, all of those statistics are up there to see. And it paints a worrying picture, really, of the growing population, although it's fantastic that we're all living longer and healthier, and it's a great indicator of our improving health. But with it, it brings the issue of having to house the ageing population. And with only 3,000 units being built each year, there is clearly a massive shortage. So you'll note from the diagram on the left there that, if you can see that, that the amount of the new build retirement housing for sale has dropped over the years, and as I've said, is currently at 3,000 units per year. You'll note from the diagram to the right that the ageing population is steadily growing and is expected to reach 20% of the population by the year 2024. So that's only six years away. So if you consider this current and increasing demand against the number of assisted living properties currently being constructed, circa 3,000 a year, it's clear to see that the housing shortage in this sector is going to increase significantly year on year. We at Trafalgar Retirement Plus identified this some while ago and identified the demand for assisted living properties, most notably the purchase option as opposed to the rental model. And since that time, we've been assembling land sites or suitable land sites for these assisted living developments. Currently, we have 6 sites under option, 2 that are about to go in for planning. And cumulatively across the 6 sites, it's close to 350 assisted living apartments, obviously subject to planning. But I mean, that's a scratch on the surface to what's required. And we are working on many more at the moment, but as to date, we have 6 currently under option. The planning process for these sites, they're obviously large with 40 to 70 units, typically take up to 6 months from the day you assemble the site with the option agreements to actually receiving planning permission and making a start on site. Thankfully, the government and local authorities recognise the demand, as the statistics are there for us all to see, and for this type of retirement housing, and therefore they're always keen to consider our proposals, and their door is normally always open when we come to chat it through with them. The benefits from a planning point of view is that assisted living schemes require less parking than a standard residential scheme. They're exempt from or have a limited reduced community infrastructure levy, and are typically built on brownfield or second use sites, Therefore, you're protecting the green belt and regenerating already built upon land. The reduced parking and minimal community infrastructure levy charge allows us to be very competitive when we are assembling these sites and making offers to the current land owners, which sort of puts us an advantage over and above standard residential developers. In addition to that, we are providing 40 to 70 apartments in place of 4 to 6 dwellings. So we're hugely increasing the number of houses within the borough. And also there is a certain amount of employment that we are offering as well. So these are all work in our favour when it comes to planning. So we've got, we said about this, we've got our own in-house team of land buyers who identify and assemble the sites, often comprising of 4, as I've said, 4 or more individual properties for these assisted living schemes. And they are typically within a mile of the shops or the high street, mainly on a main road, and close to public transport or a bus of some sort. So we're able to enter into these option agreements with the landowners to purchase their property, subject of course to obtaining planning. And as I've said, we can offer the landowner a value substantially greater than their open market value of their property, as when you consider we're putting 40 to 70 apartments on what is 4 or 6 individual houses. So it's sort of a win-win, if you like, for all concerned. And all our developments are designed very similarly, but they're all designed best in class and built to the highest levels of sustainability and performance that's currently available within the industry. Just moving on to funding. With regards to the funding, Trafalgar Retirement Plus, we've currently entered into an MOU, which is a Memorandum of Understanding, a legal agreement, if you will, with a Luxembourg-based fund, and they've committed, subject to their own due diligence, to fully fund each project from start to finish, which includes both the soft costs and the hard costs. Soft costs being all those costs up to obtaining planning permission, and the hard costs being the post-planning permission costs and, of course, the construction costs. Just a little summary there, but in conclusion, it's clear to see that the demand for housing of the growing ageing population is clear. Trafalgar Retirement Plus, as I said, we currently have 6 sites under option, and we've got quite a few schemes in the pipeline at various stages of negotiation. So I'm hoping that 6 will greatly increase over the rest of the year. So all of us at Trafalgar Retirement, we're very excited about these opportunities within the assisted living market, and we believe that the future of housing development is within the assisted living extra care market, and we're at the forefront of this market. And that is it. Thank you for your time. 2 minutes to spare.
Very good, Dan. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Thank you for listening.
Can I just grab this microphone behind you? Do you have any questions for Dan, please? If so, my colleague Chris is there ready and waiting with a microphone. If I can kick off then, Dan, if I may. The old business, if you like, very much Kent-focused.
Yes.
The sites you've got at the moment, where are they located?
They're predominantly around the M25 corridor, mostly south. So at the moment, the ones we've got are Surrey, Hampshire, Sussex, Berkshire, that sort of southwest, southeast. And
would you keep that as the focus, or are you looking at
nationally? I think for the moment, because we're based down there, it's obviously nice to be in reach of these sites, as and when we start developing them. But in years to come, hopefully we will spread more nationally across the UK.
And for competitors or other firms, I was thinking McCarthy and Stone,
yeah.
the high-profile, the main market company.
Yes.
Are they also in sales, or are they more on the rental side?
I know they do a little bit of everything, to be honest. But our focus is really on the sales side of things, which I think is going to be more the way forward than the rental market, which has been tried and tested, but it's becoming a little bit unsavoury, if you like, with these, the monthly or weekly figures.
And do you have any idea, clearly it would depend on the demand of the individual owner, but on the basic sort of package, those sort of monthly fees, what a typical resident might be looking at?
Yeah, service charge is typically about £850 a month. And that covers, obviously the maintenance of the outside of the building, the communal areas, your facilities within the building, and an hour and a half, 2 hours of domiciliary care each week, which can be topped up as and when you wish. And
then as, if you like, the operator and the owner, the margin then, assuming you're fully sold in a development,
yes,
and you have then the costs of the nurse and the other facilities, yes, that you're providing, what's the margin like there overall once you're fully occupied? If you're charging, say, £850 per unit?
I've not run the figures on that. We have a care operator that will come in, a qualified or proper trained care operator that will run the care within the building. Okay. We will maintain command or responsibility of the warden, but the sort of more medical side will be leased out. Okay. So we've not got that far down the line to look into figures of that.
The other question that came to my mind was, again, you mentioned very kind of high-end specifications for the yes, development. Is it then kind of the luxury, the top end of the market that you think that's where the opportunity is, or mid?
Yeah, I mean they're not super expensive. Well, I say that it depends on what part of the country. But I mean most of ours are in reasonably affluent areas. Typically, a one bed will be around the sort of £350,000 to £400,000 mark, and a two bed £400,000 to £450,000 mark. So for that sort of level, and the people that are going to be moving, downsizing, I think they expect a reasonably high level of specification, and that's what we will be providing these apartments with.
I imagine, the average market rate for 1 or 2 bedroom apartments in those sorts of places is there or thereabouts, isn't it?
Yes, I mean the retirement assisted living apartments command a slight premium over and above a standard residential because of the facilities that we are offering, on site, and that community feel with the facilities in there. So they are slightly more than standard residential prices, but not massively adrift.
Don't overtake everything. So, any questions? I was going to pass the mic before you ask, please.
Thank you. Just 2 questions, really. What the deal is with the Luxembourg funder?
Yes.
And also, what's the deal on the ground rent? Because there's been a lot of adverse publicity on ground rents going up in care homes over a period of years.
Yes. Ground rent, I'm not too sure on, to be perfectly honest. The Luxembourg-based fund have committed a reasonably large sum of money to and looking at each project on its own basis, on its own merit, and subject to their due diligence, they will then fully fund 100% all the costs involved with that particular project, ring-fenced under an SPV.
Is that an interest rate?
Yes, there's an interest rate on that.
And of what?
That's 10% IRR.
10%?
Yeah.
Oh, right. Thank you.
Sorry. Thank you. Do you have any other questions, please? Okay, gentlemen.
Yeah. Hi. You say you've got some residential care package arranged. Is that going to be 24/7? If you say you have one person, to me 24/7 requires at least 5 people to do that.
Yes, I mean, as I said, that's going to be a package going to be subbed out to a care operator. So yes, they will probably have more than one person. We will have our own in-house manager there 24/7. That will be 1, maybe 2 people. But the care operator will possibly have more people running the more medical, so not medical, but the nurse side of it, if you like. So there'll be a manager for the building and the sort of day-to-day operation of things, but a care operator will take over the running of the sort of more medical care, if you like.
Okay. Question here?
You mentioned that you've got a number of projects in the pipeline.
Yes.
I was just wondering what your sort of run rate is, how many you would expect to actually execute each year. What's your going forward? Is that going to increase as a demand?
Yeah, we'd like to increase. I mean, we're looking at building out 2 to 3. As you can imagine, they're quite substantial developments, so they can take up to 18 months possibly 24 months, depending on the size, to actually build out. So we're looking at 2 to 3 the first year, maybe we add another couple year on year. But we're identifying a lot more sites than that. Some of them can be land banks, some of them we may consider selling on. But at the moment, we're reasonably small. We're looking at doing 2 to 3 a year and grow with it.
And just one more on that I think was mentioned before about the occupancy. So what sort of occupancy rate would you need for it to be profitable, or do you imagine with the demand that you'd be pretty much fully occupied?
Well, I mean, given the statistics there and the areas we operate in, I'd like to think with the demand we will be fully occupied. We've gone around to other sort of similar care homes, if you like. They don't quite offer the same thing, but it's that sort of thing, and most of them have a waiting list, believe it or not. They really have a list for people to come in. So we're hoping that there won't be any void periods, and we will start marketing these probably 6 months to 12 months before they're actually completed. So we're hoping that we'll get a lot sold, off plan, and that they keep. That we don't have any void periods of any of the apartments.
Okay, there we are. Time up. Thank you very much indeed, Dan. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for listening.